Tell your story.
Change the conversation.
Organized by students. TEDx Youth at SHC.
My uncle Michael owns a Porsche. He also owns this big screen TV that he loves watching sports on. So Michael has worked as a lawyer for about 45 years now and has been paid well in his profession. He is 70 years old. My uncle is now ready to retire and relax after all his years of hard work. He can finally do all the things he's wanted to do. He'll spend his mornings playing golf with his friends. He'll travel around the world. He'll even be able to help pay for his grandchildren's college education. Uncle Michael has enough savings to have freedom in the final part of his life. Actually, none of that is true. Well, yes, he does have a Porsche, and he is a lawyer. But retirement is not an option for my uncle. He's still working. And my uncle isn't working into his 70s because he loves his job. He works and will unfortunately have to keep working because he doesn't have enough money to retire. At this point, you might be a little bit confused. How does a guy who owns a Porsche and has worked as a lawyer for 45 years not have enough money to retire? Well, in this case, Uncle Michael admits that the problem wasn't that he didn't make enough money, but rather he didn't have the knowledge to handle the money that he made. Obviously, financial knowledge is important. So important, in fact, that behavioral researchers from Cambridge University suggest that parents start teaching their children about money as young as age 3. In addition, in a CNBC survey, 83% of Americans said that parents are responsible for teaching their kids about personal finance. Now, parents educating their children about money seems like a great idea. However, there's a problem with this concept. How is a parent supposed to teach a child something that the parent might not even understand? And well, if parents are supposed to teach their children about money, well then wealthy children with financially literate parents will receive information, while children from lower income families with parents who never received financial education will be set at a massive disadvantage. Now, age 3 might seem a little bit young, but people my age certainly are faced with important financial decisions whether we realize it or not. For example, over the summer, my 17-year-old friend James got a job at a local smoothie company. And James was lucky in that he wasn't working because his family needed extra income. He was simply looking to get some more experience in the workforce and earn some money for himself. He only worked for about 2 days a week and about 6 to 7 hours a day. And James made just over $800 last summer. $800 that he earned and could use however he saw fit. Now, just for a second, imagine if James took 500 of his dollars and decided to save and invest it. If James bought stock in a standard group of companies, such as those in the S&P 500, then he would make about 10% a year on his money based on those companies' performance in the past 20 years. And remember, this money would be building on itself each year, a process known as compound interest. Albert Einstein was quoted as saying, "Compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. He who understands it, earns it. He who doesn't, pays it." So why did the world's smartest man praise compound interest so heavily? Well, let's take a look at a very basic example using James's situation. If James invested $500 in the S&P 500, then that $500 would turn into $4,500 by the time he turns 40. Let me say that again, $500 to $4,500. The key ingredient in this process is time. James didn't need that $500 to put food on the table, so he had the opportunity to set it aside and let it grow. And this would allow him to experience the feeling of delayed gratification. The 40-year-old James would be able to look back at the 17-year-old James and be glad that he saved his money. So what did James do with the money? Well, he spent it on the usual things: fast food and video games. But before you judge James's choices, how was he supposed to know to save that money? And how was he supposed to know just how much that $500 could have helped him in the future? Well, what about my uncle? I just mentioned the miracle of compound interest, how you just get to sit back and watch your money grow. There is nothing as fantastic as compound interest when it is working for you. However, compound interest is not so fun when it is exponentially working against you, taking your money. Because just as your money grows, so too can your debt. And this is exactly what happened to my Uncle Michael due to his credit card spending. When he was young, he made many out-of-budget purchases with his credit card, like his Porsche and his TV. And at the end of the month, when he received his credit card bill, he could not afford to pay the full amount. Instead, he would pay the minimum amount that the credit card companies would suggest. He knew that these companies charged interest, but he didn't understand how much that would cost him. And here's an example. If you had a credit card balance of $5,000 at the end of the month, and a credit card company that charged a normal interest rate of, let's say, 19%, and then if you only paid the minimum amount of money on your credit card bill, then it would take you 11 years and 5 months to pay off that $5,000. Even worse, you would be paying 63% more money than if you had just paid off your credit card bill in full that first month. My uncle's debt grew and grew because of his short-term decisions, preventing him from going a nest egg. Uncle Michael would like to be playing golf and traveling, but instead will have to keep working to pay off his debt, even though he wanted to retire years ago. What's more, my uncle's situation could have been easily avoided had he spent within his means with his credit card and then paid off his credit card bill at the end of each month. Well, easily avoided may be a bit of an overstatement. In today's society, we are constantly being taught to spend. Throughout the media we consume, it can be easy to internalize the idea that rich people spend and flaunt their money. They have these nice cars, they have these big houses, and those things make them rich. But the fact that my Uncle Michael owns a Porsche doesn't make him rich. The real way to build wealth is by saving money. But it can be extremely difficult to save money, however, when the only message we hear around us is spend, spend, spend. On TV, we are bombarded with ads encouraging us to buy the newest product. Have you ever seen an ad that says, "Our product isn't really necessary. You should probably save your money instead of buying from us"? No, of course you haven't. And it's this dangerous society of spending that has led to the normalization of spending beyond one's means. According to Bankrate, currently 35% of Americans have credit card debt. That's 116 million people. Now, obviously, most of these people's debt isn't as crippling as my uncle's, but it pains me to think that there are other people out there suffering from the same mistakes that he made. And these are not mistakes born out of American stupidity. Uncle Michael went to college, graduate school, and got a law degree, but he still didn't understand how damaging his decisions were. And consider this. If my uncle was in financial trouble due to a lack of financial knowledge, even with his high-paying job, just think of how dangerous financial illiteracy could be for low-income individuals. We need to find a place where we can educate people about personal finance, a place where everyone can get access to this information, regardless of socioeconomic status, parental level of financial literacy, or any other factor. Does such a place exist? Well, I can think of one place where everyone receives education: school. Students go to school to learn the skills and necessary information that will prepare them for their lives. So why is it that students never learn how to handle the one thing that everyone must manage? Money. Other than maybe reading and basic math, the ability to be financially literate is arguably more important than any other skill that students learn in school. And the crucial financial topics that could be taught are not rocket science. Topics such as understanding compound interest, saving money for retirement, avoiding credit card debt, and investing in the stock market would not be difficult to teach to students, yet the information could change lives. It certainly could have changed my Uncle Michael's. But perhaps even more importantly, an education in financial literacy could help to address economic inequality. On a financial literacy test by the Program for International Student Assessment, students from low-income backgrounds scored one whole proficiency level lower than their wealthier peers. In addition, students from immigrant families scored 26 points lower than native-born students, and students from minority backgrounds scored far lower than white students. This is a prime example of inequality in America. Everyone should have access to financial knowledge, not just wealthy families. A mandatory high school financial literacy class could help to level the playing field, providing essential financial knowledge to all students. Now, even with a financial literacy class, no one can be guaranteed financial success, but everyone deserves an equal chance at it. Thank you.